I'm no enthusiast for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but its DLC expansion, as it turned out, doesn't sit well with me. There are certain people who play this game who came to appreciate and enjoy it no matter what, and I can't change that. But as for me, I think it deserves a better effort. Something like a couple of battle arenas, new carts, and customization options, and a few characters along with the new tracks. From what I've seen, this could have been thought of sooner, and Nintendo should have worked on it better if they ever for it to be as liked as when people used to love the game in general back when it used to be loved. Even though I don't play the game, and I don't even have a Nintendo Switch console to begin with, I only liked so much of it as it is. And regardless of whichever worked and however much it worked, I'm among those who feel as if it wasn't enough of a delivery. Whatever I said so far might sound like a lot already, but it's the point worth making for what I really want to talk about. What if something like it was to be done to Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled? Suppose someone from Beenox got inspiration from what Nintendo did to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and suggested to the rest of the folks there that perhaps something similar can happen to what they remade and remastered. Even while on paper, it sounds like a first-rate opportunity. It's just a matter of what's the best way to execute it. As unlikely as it seems, it's doable. And chances are, they even just might be working on it right now. However, no one should expect the game to do the exact same thing that Nintendo did for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and otherwise make the same mistakes and raise the same concerns. If this new content for Nitro Fueled is to be at its fullest potential and be on the same level as the already existing content, the developers of Beenox have to do their own thing, but in a way that the players will get the impression that the company took the time to do the research and homework and work out the science and mathematics to ensure that such content completely works. If they really are doing something like this, I don't know what the DLC intended by them is or will be. But I have ideas of what I think the intended content can look like and how it should work. And maybe this video can inspire someone from Beenox to use these ideas or convince someone else watching this to transfer the message. Well, for starters, this DLC expansion for Nitro Fueled should be more than just racetracks compared to what was done in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at first. Also, when compared to what was done in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, not everyone would like to have to wait for the second half of the entire period to play as new characters. So, as the entire DLC expansion still features new racetracks and new characters, nevertheless, as well as legendary skins for the characters who never got any. It should also feature such content that the DLC expansion of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe never had. Things like new battle arenas, new options to customize the appearance of carts, and even a couple of new game modes. New racetracks were the most prominent in the DLC expansion of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so I'll start talking about racetracks. These days, there's a multitude of racetracks within the entire Mario Kart franchise, some of which are reworked into new games just because they are favorites. All in all, properties distinguish themselves, though the similar of such is shared between some. Many are named after the same characters, and various are themed after a level in any regular Mario platformer. There are even some when there is just originality, but it works somehow. And it must be the norm that every game has Bowser's Castle and Rainbow Road, with a different appearance and layout. That's grown on me. The Crash Bandicoot franchise doesn't have that many games with differing level designs, and not as many racing games to include retro tracks and nitro fueled. So it's not to say that purely original stuff is dependent, but ideas in the new content should not make the new content look like it does not belong in the game. First, here are requirements to be applied. Number 1. There can only be one racetrack themed after one particular character, and only that track has the character's name, unless stated otherwise. Number 2. If a racetrack features images of any kind, of multiple characters, none of their names are to be incorporated into the name of that particular racetrack. But this depends on whether the track is themed after a character or not. Number 3. Elements and assets from a crash level that are applied in a racetrack are repeated as little times as possible in other racetracks. And number 4. If nothing in a racetrack is from a crash level, don't allow anything of that racetrack to contradict the game and estrange the people playing it. The above requirements considered, here are some ideas. Some of the new racetracks are based off of some of the characters who didn't get their own home tracks. The most recommended characters who deserve racetracks themed after them are Yaya Panda and Brio, and least likely Hasty. Maybe Crunch can get one. At some point, put in NPCs from the Crash games that haven't been used before, such as possums, echidnas, lizards, and goats. I would like one new racetrack to have bounce pads that are similar to the bounce crates, except they're big enough for racers to land on and bounce off. An inspiration from Mushroom Gorge. Common sense tells you that everyone who loves that track simply loves bouncing on and off those big mushrooms in the cave. So a new racetrack can have something similar. There can be one track themed after the Great Wall of China levels of Crash 3, except there are ancient Chinese architecture to race in and out. And the track is suitable to be dedicated to Yaya Panda, as it features statues of her, and also a couple of images of Coco and Pura. And the track can be called Panda Palace. There can be a racetrack themed after the machinery levels of Crash 1, and it can be dedicated to n-brio. Actually, this idea came from a made-up instrumental uploaded on YouTube. There can also be a racetrack themed after the hog ride levels of Crash 1 called Tribal Village. I know some of it is already in Tiger Temple, but the difference is that the new track is not dedicated to Pura. Actually, this also came from a made-up instrumental uploaded on YouTube. But get this. This racetrack can be an incentive to make a tribesman a playable character. Optionally, there can be a new racetrack inspired by Rainbow Road. The very final racetrack of the entire game would have a special place where a racer is launched up and land at a lower point. And get this. The jumping point is even higher and farther than the one in Electron Avenue. So those are my best suggestions there. The second thing that the DLC expansion should feature is even more battle arenas. If there's one thing to learn from a Mario Kart game, it's that there's more to do than race. In that regard, why didn't Nintendo consider new arenas, albeit from past games, in the DLC expansion for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? And I'm sure there's someone else in my page. So Beenox should learn from that and introduce brand new battle arenas to Nitro Fueled. That being said, the DLC expansion for Nitro Fueled should also feature battle arenas for the players for when they need a break from racing. And since the battle arenas of Crash Team Racing reuse aesthetics of some of the racetracks in the game, Nitro Fueled should continue the trend with referencing some other racetracks and even the new racetracks in the game. One new arena should mean to reuse elements of Coco Park. In the original Crash Team Racing, the arena parking lot reused a selected few elements from Coco Park. You just know it by the arena's music. But when it was reworked for Nitro Fueled, it instead reused elements from Tiny Arena. I wouldn't call it drastic, but I guess one should learn to understand why it was done to give the arena an actual identity. This new arena makes up for it by incorporating some of what is remembered seen in Coco Park. No need for statues of Coco, but there can be the same colorful sky, trees with pink-red leaves, designs on the grassy surface, maybe even the rainbow, the waterfall, and the sprinklers. The same castle from the medieval levels of Crash 3 in the background is optional. And the name can be Bandicoot Garden, so as to be dedicated to Crash and Coco. There can be arenas themed after Sewer Speedway, Prehistoric Playground, Spyro Circuit, Gingerbread Joyride, and Megamix Mania. There can be one with elements of Nina's Nightmare, and Mr. Crumb can get a cameo. And one themed after Koala Carnival, and it can be named Big Top. So there still are racetracks, especially the new ones, that can have battle arenas themed after them. But there can also be new arenas that have key elements never seen in the game. There can be an arena themed after the area where Crash single-handedly dealt with the Komodo brothers. The floor of it is especially the best to reference, don't you think? One new arena can be called Time Twister, and it reuses elements from the place where Crash battled Entropy. And there are even images of him at certain points. There can also be an arena themed after Entrance. How about one called Chicken Coop in honor of King Chicken? I personally would like to see one dedicated to the elemental entities of Wrath of Cortex. So those are my ideas for new arenas. Once the science and mathematics are worked out, the ideas can and will work in the game. Kart bodies, wheels, paint jobs, and decals were part of the DLC after game launch. In the DLC expansion, they ought to keep going with it. I'm leaving that to the people of Beenox. Mostly the experimenting with color combinations for paint jobs. Anyone who plays the game ought to recognize that it's all about the creativity of the developers. But for my personal interest, I'd like to see kart bodies resembling a pickup truck, a steam train, and a jeep. And also monster truck wheels. Then there is the handling of the characters. First, satisfy the players by letting all the characters who are currently playable have legendary skins. Put a martial arts robe on Yaya Panda. Do something for Hunter and Nasty Nork. Give Komodo Mo something for him. How about give Iron Checkpoint Crate exotic skins based on the versions of it in Crash on the Run? And when that's done, then bring in new characters. Start with those within the Crash franchise who haven't been picked yet. It's a tough task, especially when there tends to be more enemies than allies, and it makes the most sense when amount of characters for Aku Aku and amount of characters for Uka Uka are balanced. Certain enough, creating brand new characters would have to be considered, especially neutral characters, not to mention baby versions. And there are characters from even the Spyro trilogy who deserve a spotlight. The catch is that there must be such with models from the reignited trilogy. As for who should be there, let it be at least Elora, Ripto, Bianca, and the Sorceress. And that settles it with the characters. But what about new game modes? I suggest looking at some other Mario Kart games as well as other kart racing video games for inspiration. There already is Ring Rally for the racetracks, so what else could there be? There are several game modes for the battle arenas. Could there be more? Maybe turn to Crash Team Rumble for some inspiration. So, new game modes can work in the DLC expansion under correct circumstances. The DLC expansion can also involve patching up things in areas that need to make more sense. The patches involve improving the invincibility theme of Aku Aku and changing the victory podium theme for many of the playable characters. And why not some kind of thanks for playing presentation so that you know that you've accomplished everything? But how about presenting a map layout for whichever battle arena you're in? There's a map at the bottom right corner of the screen that shows you where you are while you're on a racetrack or in any section of the adventure area. So, can it be done for the battle arenas as well? If the map layout is seen in the battle arenas of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, can it also happen in Nitro Fueled? But don't start with the story of Crash Nitro Kart. Beenox will never put it in the game. However, if there needs to be something to explain the characters of that game, only a new story with new objectives that actually can promote new game modes can make up for it. Let's be honest, Crash Nitro Kart is not the kind of game I heard it is, if not anyone heard it is meant to be. More to the point, the inclusion of a second story should be its own thing, even if it is part of the DLC expansion. And most important thing to note, it has to look like it's in the same game. Simply put, the trouble with the racetracks in the DLC expansion of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is that the textures and graphics aren't the same as the existing ones. Beenox better not let that same thing happen with the DLC expansion for Nitro Fueled. Is it just me, or was people from Nintendo watching how many people consider Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled to be better than any game in the Mario Kart franchise? Either way, no one should expect me to believe that doubling the amount of tracks in the game in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe resolves anything. But I don't disagree that there is at least some potential left in Nitro Fueled, and some particular DLC expansion can be a subtle justification for it. Needless to say, having up to 100 racetracks is no requirement, and having as many tracks as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has right now is something Nitro Fueled may never top. But when it comes down to it, it really isn't about just the racetracks, albeit the amount and the appearance of each one. Racetracks are just one factor. It's about making the most of what you drive. So, if there comes a time that someone from Beenox think about Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled doing something similar to what was recently done by Nintendo for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and it ever happens, I recommend that there be more than just racetracks and even a couple of characters. But most importantly, it maintains the foundations and principles of the game. What the game is and does, it should be maintained and followed. Now I'd like to read what you say. Are you interested that Nitro-Fueled get a DLC expansion like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but better in quality? And what do you want in it? Type down your ideas, and thanks for watching.